In today's session, we're going to be talking about how you can actually create a lightness and a fun that can help you to create the results that you want in a way that you probably never thought imaginable. One of my favorite scriptures, actually one of the defining scriptures of what I do, one of them, is where Jesus said to people, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in spirit, and you will find rest for your souls." And the next verse says, "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Have you ever felt like you were carrying the heavy burden? Have you ever felt like you were carrying the heavy yoke? You were heavily laden, down, discouraged, separated from anything that felt good. Have you ever felt that way? We're going to look at that and how to make an immediate transfer into something else. And I'm going to tell you this, genius can drive us one of two places. Genius can drive us to a place to where we're connected to our people with our gifts, and we're serving in a way that helps them and helps us, and everyone is happy because we're bringing heaven's value to our brothers and our sisters on earth. And because of that, there's an exchange of value where we give them our skills, we give them our knowledge, we give them whatever it is we're exchanging, and we get from them what it is that they have built up from serving others, because money is pretty much just that, right? Money is a receipt of you being of service to someone. So when someone gives you money, they're not giving you gold, silver, or Benjamin Franklin's. What they're giving you is a receipt that proves that they knew how to serve someone else. So they did something and created that exchange. And now they're exchanging that for whatever it is that you have to offer. I was talking to, I want to start with this story. This is remarkable because whenever you think about genius, I normally highlight the fact that, that we all have this embedded genius, that we are made for a reason. We're made for something, and it's found, that plan is found a lot of times in that encoded genius. But it can also bring you madness. In 1923, at the age of 18, a guy by the name of Howard inherited his father's fortune. His father had owned a very successful tool company, and Howard takes it over, finds himself really in the middle of something he didn't really anticipate being a part of. But here he is, and he takes that business and he turns it into, at the age of 18, millions of dollars. And just like what typically happens when one has the means to go explore things, Howard started exploring things that he loved. And so one of the things that he loved, along with everyone else in 1927, was film, movies, entertainment. We were just out of World War I, and unbeknownst to him and others, World War II was looming around the corner. And the entertainment industry was huge. It was captivating. And Howard decided he wanted to be a part of that as well. And so he made, in 1927, at the age of 22, produced and directed a film called Hell's Angels. Very edgy for the time. And it's interesting because what happened there ended up being something that would bubble up in the rest of his life. And that was his attention to detail. His attention to detail actually caused him to actually look deeper than other people would, to see things that other people wouldn't, and to go to great lengths to make things as he thought they should be. And one of the things that he did was in 1927, think about this, he ballooned something that was a budget of maybe around 100,000 tops to over a $4 million budget. A $4 million budget. And the big reason was he wanted it to have sound, like actual sound. That was a big deal back then. And guess what? It worked. It paid off. And this success even bolstered his young confidence even more. And so we went from that into something else that was also intriguing him. And sometimes when we have resources, it offers us the opportunity to explore unfettered those things that we desire most. And so he started exploring the world of high-speed flight. And he decided, I can figure this out. I know as much about this as anyone else does. I certainly know about cars. He was a hot rodder and a motorist, an enthusiast of going fast on the roads. And he mixed his knowledge with a little bit of engineering knowledge, and actually was able to, through this same type of meticulous attention to detail, was able to build something that broke a speed record. It was the H-1 Racer. So at the time, it was the fastest plane around. And this is at the age of 29. So here he is. He's gone from inheriting wealth to growing the wealth, from growing the wealth to becoming a successful producer and director in Hollywood, to then becoming now a successful plane designer. Was there anything this kid couldn't do? Well, that's kind of where things took a turn for him. So he ends up, at the age of 32, he was able to fly around the world in record time, 91 hours, and he became a national hero. Again, on top of the world, survived plane crashes. And then he undertook, during the time of World War II, the largest project anyone had ever done, and it was building out the world's largest airplane. And instead of what people were using, he decided he would use wood, spruce to be exact, and he began construction. Again, something that went over budget, something that was to the specification and the detail that only he saw, almost to just a very maniacal pattern. And he did create the Spruce Goose. I was able to climb in this in the Aviation Museum in Oregon, and it's huge. You can walk through the wings standing upright. It's massive. The Spruce Goose only flew one time, and it did justify that something so big could fly, something so heavy could fly. So Howard Hughes was maybe a genius, but after this, at the age of 41, his life began to decline. And the truth is, if you look at this man, he was carrying the heavy burden, the heavy yoke, the thing that says, this is who you are, this is what you have, this is the way it must be, there is no other way, there's no fun involved. This is you doing what you must do. After the age of 41, he was often very, very rarely seen. He would isolate himself in dark rooms, never letting anyone come near him. He was so obsessed with cleanliness, he would wear Kleenex boxes on his feet everywhere he went. It became a nutcase. He died at the age of 70 with no more contributions that we know of that are significant. And what you look at is this, it's someone that cracked under the weight of the heavy burden. Now, you may look at Howard Hughes and say, yeah, the guy was a whack job. Listen, I've not seen any of the movies. I've not seen any of this. I'm just fascinated by the idea that genius can actually lead us into a dark place. And I've worked with many people who had a spark, but it turned into something else that kept them captive. You've heard of people all the time building their own prison. The golden handcuffs, or they become a product of their own success. How do we get into that? More importantly, how do we get out of that? recently I was talking to someone who had found himself in a similar situation. And he's in an industry that is going through challenges. And the guy said to me, he's like, listen, I did this before. I was super successful, but I am no longer here. I feel like I'm a shell of myself. I'm afraid to go out and do the things that I did before. I don't even know who I am. As a matter of fact, things have gotten so bad. I've had to take on a part-time nighttime job that I've been lying about and trying to hide from people just so I can support myself. And the way the guy described it was he was in a dark place. And friend, former client, all of those things. And he was just, it was just what was once easy and simple to him had turned difficult, and his burden became heavy. Have you ever been there? Have you been in the heavy place? About a year ago, maybe a little bit more, it was evident that one of my businesses was not doing so well either. And I had to do something to keep the money flowing in. And I don't know why, but the way that I thought my gifts should be applied towards others, it wasn't working. And because it wasn't working, there was no money. Like the cash flow had stopped. Things had changed. And the result of that was I had to go do something new. So I live in a high traffic area for tourists. We don't always see the gifts that we have as gifts. I certainly have probably cursed the traffic more than anyone around. And I realize that's an asset. We have a decent car that fits enough people, a lot of people into it. Keep it clean. I turned on the Uber app. And at first it was very begrudgingly. I felt ashamed. I felt stupid. I felt lowly. I felt unsuccessful. And it's interesting what feeling does to you. Because the feeling that we have actually makes it heavy or it makes it light. And the truth is I had been spiraling in one of my businesses, unable to pull it, and gather it and regroup and have a decent plan. And because of that spiral, it's like I was in a slump. I was in the place of the heavy burden. And if you've ever played baseball, you know what happens if you get the yips, or if you get scared that you're going to do bad, or even if you've been speaking on stage and you're afraid you're going to forget the very next thing you're going to say. You typically will. Like all of these things are always, they're always close by. It's always possible. Failure is. We try to avoid it. Here we are in School of Professional Design. I'm trying to show you the way for you to create longevity and success that feels good. And the truth is sometimes the game changes. And when the game changes, how do you change? My story, I think I'll tell the whole thing, my Uber story pretty soon, because I ended up driving over 300 rides for Uber. And it wasn't until I learned the lesson that I no longer had to drive Uber. It was a great day, but truthfully, I missed a little bit of the lesson that I was learning there. I was sad to see it go. There's another story of a man named Dan Jansen, and I've told it before. In 1988, he was 18 years old, fastest. He was lightning on ice. The world expected him to win. He was supposed to win. And here he was in the place of supposed to win. And you've heard of the phrase, oh, you can't lose. Well, this guy he just couldn't win. Just before he skates in the two events that he was signed up for in 88, he gets a call that his sister had just died in a car accident. It destroys his confidence, destroys his focus. He slips on the ice, falls, doesn't place. He places 4th in one of them and like 28th in the other race. Horrible, horrible run. Well, comes back again in 4 years. And in 4 years, again, he falls. This guy's supposed to win. He feels all of the pressure of supposed to win. All through the year, this guy's blazing on ice, like on practices, setting world records. Then the next Olympics comes around. Same thing. Slips and falls, places, doesn't even place, like very, very far back. The heavy world favorite to win doesn't win. The final year of him being able to compete, he laces up the skates, but when he laces them up, it wasn't even his best event. He only qualified for one event. And when he laces up his skates, he's like, I'm just going to have fun. This is my last race. I'm just going to have fun. And he had a new reason. He had just had a daughter. And there was a different joy released in his life. In his going out there to have fun, dude sets a world record, gets the gold medal. It's interesting sometimes that the more we try for something, the more it evades us. It slips through our fingers. It's like grasping the wind or trying to hold sand tightly in your fist. It streams right out. But when we hold things softly, when we allow for success to become a byproduct, it's there. It's like a song, like a melody. Come to me, you who are weary and heavy laden. Take my yoke upon you. For I am gentle and lowly in spirit. I will give you rest. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. If you're carrying something that feels like it's heavy, maybe it is because you're doing what you're supposed to do. Someone supposed something about you, and they imposed that design upon you, and now you feel the weight of expectation. Maybe it's bill collectors. Maybe it's your spouse. Maybe it's your parents. Maybe it's your boss. Maybe it's you because you promised something at the beginning of the year. And there you are, breaking promises, failing, and feeling the weight of it. That feeling feels like you're all alone. It feels like you're separate. It feels like nobody is with you. Was talking to someone else just this week, and he mentioned that he didn't feel meaning in what he was doing at work. And it was eating so much into him that it was robbing him of joy. And then from the place where he didn't have the joy, suddenly he was feeling very alone. And as we're talking about this aloneness, I mentioned, I believe that's actually the spawning place of really bad things. Anything from crime, because I'm alone, someone did this to me, so I'm going to go do something bad, to suicide. And he stopped right there and he said, well, I'd be lying if that wasn't a thought recently. That's the trick of the heavy burden. That is the lie of the grind. That's where it will leave you. Alone, broken, disbelieving yourself, disbelieving what you have to offer to anyone, and thinking you have to do it alone. But what would happen if you could partner with God? What would happen if you could partner with others? What would happen if you could bring your gift, and no matter what, even if it was a little, it was still enough for what needed to happen? Well, that's the case. And I don't care how long you have to work. You may be under what feels like an insurmountable debt. But there's two words that are going to matter. Well, I guess there's four. There's one that says I am, and the other one is I can. Who do you say that you are? And what do you believe that you can do? I can pay off this debt. I can get this many clients. I can find the right home. I can master AI. I can repair this relationship. Do you believe you can? We gotta start doing things to fill up your cans, right? Your I cans. What are the things you need to feel like you can do again? And for you, how can you do that? It's interesting. Like this session was initially, I wanted to design it. It's about gamification. I'll probably do that on the next session. But I just want to stay here for a second, because some of you have not allowed yourself to love. You haven't allowed yourself to love yourself, or to love others. You think that what it is that you want, you have to earn. What else? And you're so afraid of not having the thing you want. You're willing to take on the thing you should do to get the thing that you should have, and you're just a big pile of should. And the big pile of should, like, it's heavy and it stinks. How do we get rid of the should? I love, again, back in the Bible, the story of Rachel and Leah. And there was a guy by the name of Jacob. Jacob wasn't a great guy. He actually was a trickster, stole his brother's inheritance, stole his birthright, and he runs away from home because he's afraid his brother's going to find him and kill him, which probably would have happened. And in the running, he goes to a place where, like, these people are of the same people, and he could find a wife there, but really he just wanted to work for his great uncle. And in working there, he falls in love with one of the daughters. Yes, this does sound like a Kentucky effigy here, because he ends up falling in love with people who would essentially be his second or third cousins. So it was different at that time. But as he's there working for his uncle, just doing whatever it took to survive. And by the way, it's okay to do whatever it takes to survive. It's okay to work a nighttime job. It's okay to do another thing. It's okay to do what it takes, whatever it takes. It's okay. He was doing whatever it took. And in the place of whatever it took, he found love. He was dazzled by this beautiful woman named Rachel. And he wanted to marry her and all of those things. And he went to Laban and said, "Hey, I want to marry your daughter." Laban's like, "Of course, you marry my daughter. Here she is. We have wedding night for you." Gets him drunk. And of course, I'm sure he sounds Russian, just like I did. Gets him drunk. And the night of the wedding, presents the bride. Her face is covered. Doesn't matter. But Jacob wakes up the next morning and realizes he didn't sleep with Rachel, who he loved. He slept with Leah. And when you sleep with someone, especially in those cultures, you were like, that was it. You were married. So here he is. He's with Leah, Rachel's sister. She's okay. It's not what he loved. And he had already signed a contract to work 7 years to earn the right to marry Leah, the oldest of the two daughters. And he worked the 7 years. Later, he's like, "Listen, you tricked me. I wanted to marry Rachel." He's like, of course you marry Rachel. 7 more years. And it said in the Bible, it says that the 7 years that he worked, he agreed to it. And the 7 years was as a day. It just went by. Love makes the burden lighter. Do you drink coffee that you love? Do you do things that cause you to appreciate your day? Do you see sights? Do you travel to places? Do you let yourself have things? Or are you being a Spartan about it? Are you denying yourself because you think that makes you stronger? Are you... it's not always about treating yourself and just always doing what pleases you. But if you're not doing that, you're missing out. You're working for nothing. And your brain's going to rebel against that. It's like, I've always got to work and I never get anything I want. If you have a hard time sticking to a routine or keeping habits, it's probably because you're doing the thing you have to do and not the thing you want to do. Is that you? Come to me, you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Are you giving yourself rest? Are you working at late hours, past hours? Are you doing extra for people? Is your brain smoked at the end of the day? Mind, body, spirit? And if so, are you recovering? What are the things you need to do that would make you feel like you're in love with the life you get to live? What would make you say, I'm the luckiest man in the world. I'm the luckiest woman in the world? What would make you literally say that? I hope that those are the things that end up on your beautiful vision board. And I hope that those become the things that define you. Your desires can define you if you give yourself permission to go after them. If not, you're always going to find yourself chasing the desires of others. And the desires of others is a heavy burden because you're not made like them. You don't tick like them. But I can take their plan and work it. Maybe you can take their plan and work it. Maybe. I'm going to tell you this about online teachers and all of these gurus. A lot of times by the time you get the plan, it's already been worked. There's not a lot left there. They're just teaching you something and they're getting the final money before the door closes because that's the opportunity. Hey, I'm going to go do this for myself. And if I can teach someone else to go do it, I don't care if they get results. I get the money. That's how most people think in the industry. And what we do is like, oh, I want what he has, or I want what she has. And we throw our hearts over the bar and follow another heavy burden and empty promise. So make your life, make your work taste more like chocolate and less like medicine. Make it fun. You'll get more done, and we'll see you in the next session.